before you even touch the launch button. For months, Israel's Unit 8200 has been playing a long, dangerous game of shadows. Before a single missile was fueled, deep cover assets had infiltrated the base, physically attaching ultra-miniaturized GPS beacons to the chassis of the IRGC's most valuable assets, the Heavy Transporter Erector launchers. These aren't your typical trackers. They are passive dormant and virtually undetectable, sitting in a low-power sleep mode until triggered. 0308 hours. The moment the U.S. Navy Command gives the go signal, the beacons pulse once. The satellite doesn't just see the mountain, it sees the city of missiles from the inside out. It identifies the exact bay, the exact tunnel, and the exact coordinate of every single TL hidden within the Zagros range. The air gap Iran boasted about that supposed isolation from the outside world is now irrelevant. Because when the enemy knows exactly where you are, it doesn't matter how thick your walls are. It's the ultimate tactical irony. It's like hiding a thief in a basement, but forgetting you've already slipped an AirTag into his pocket. Every move the IRGC makes, every time a driver shifts a truck an inch inside the tunnel, the OFEC 16 updates the target solution in real time. On the screens of the USS Gravely and USS Carney, these massive missile launchers previously considered unfindable are now just blinking green targets on a digital map inviting a Tomahawk to come and visit. 0312 hours. Before the Tomahawk swarm reaches the coastline, the Iranian air defense grid prepares to light up the night. Deep in the Zagros Mountains, the Oghab 44 complex relies on a sophisticated fiber optic network to funnel target acquisition data to their Bavar 373 batteries. But for this data to move, the complex requires massive constant power. The Israeli Air Force isn't going to waste missiles on hardened concrete bunkers that can survive a near miss. Instead, they are going for the jugular. A pair of F-15I Rams operating under strict EMCON to remain invisible, reach their release point over the Iraqi border. They don't target the launchers, they target the energy nodes. Under the wings of the Rams, the Rampage supersonic missiles ignite. These aren't standard warheads. They are kinetic energy penetrators designed for structural collapse. They scream into the high-voltage transformer substations surrounding the Oghab 44 complex. A series of blinding flashes ripple across the mountain range as the substations are vaporized. The grid dies instantly. The lights in the Oghab 44 control rooms flick off, and the primary fiber optic network, the backbone of Iran's impenetrable defense, goes dead. The Iranian commanders are forced to scramble. They trigger the facility's emergency backup generators, a move that proves to be their final tactical blunder. These massive industrial-grade generators don't run silently. They belch out massive plumes of superheated exhaust as they struggle to power the bunker's internal systems. In the freezing cold of the mountain night, these exhaust vents turn into radiant neon signs on the long-range infrared sensors of the Israeli Oran AEW and C aircraft. The ghosts in the mountain are no longer hidden. They are now glowing high-contrast thermal signatures perfectly indexed for the cruise missiles that are already closing in at Mach 0.7. The power grid wasn't just a utility, it was the nerve center, and Israel just severed the spine. 0500 hours. The Iranian subterranean defense grid is flickering under backup power, but the Oghab 44 command staff is still operative. They are frantically realigning their Bavar 373 launchers, attempting to regain a lock on the inbound Tomahawks. They believe they have one last chance to save.
Change this regime and can get rid of this regime. As we see today, Artesh, the military of Iran, is defecting towards the people. IRGC members are defecting towards the people. Basij members are defecting towards the people. And the Iranian people have a transition leader called King Reza Pahlavi. Crown Prince Reza Pahlavi is the leader, the official leader of the opposition against this regime. And therefore, regime change will fall on the hands and the shoulders of Iranian people. All we need is support from the Americans, not their approval. We have their support. Their approval will come along. The approval belongs to the Iranian people and nobody else.
All right, Elahir Jamali, thank you for joining us on the broadcast. So there are concerns over the safety of the Iranian women's footballers who are in Australia for the Asian Cup, and they boycotted the national anthem in the opening match, after which they were called traitors, and after which there are rising concerns of their safety once they return to Iran. News coming in: Kansas airport in United States briefly shut due to threat amid raging West Asia war. Threat to U.S. airport is being reported. As per U.S. Aviation Department, Kansas airport was briefly shut, and sections of Kansas airport were evacuated. So Kansas City International Airport reopens after brief closure due to unspecified threat. There's still no clarity over the threat, and this is being reported from United States, Kansas City, and where the international airport has now reopened after there was a brief closure as authorities investigated a possible threat. The airport and federal government has reported this. The threat prompted some airplanes to evacuate passengers on the airport tarmac and disrupted flights for thousands after the Federal Aviation Administration temporarily halted flights during the investigation. So the flight operations were also hit, and the Kansas City Aviation Department said that it evacuated sections of the airport in Kansas City in Missouri due to a potential threat. It also said that the evacuation was initiated at around 11:15 a.m. local time, and that airport police worked with the FBI to investigate this matter, to investigate the threat. And in fact, as per reports, this happened in Kansas City, and the airport has now reopened. There was a brief closure due to the threat, and this comes amid the raging West Asia war. Now, what is being reported that there was a threat to U.S. airport, and as per the U.S. Aviation Department, the Kansas airport was briefly shut, but it has now been reopened. So this airport in Kansas, which is in United States, has been reopened after it was briefly shut after there was a threat. And remember, this becomes even more significant because this is being reported amid the raging West Asia war, and we've seen how airports have been attacked in this raging war, and that is why the flight operations were also halted, and there was evacuation in certain sections of the airport. But after investigation, the airport has now reopened, and the Kansas airport in the United States was briefly closed, but now the operations have started again, and the airport has also reopened. And meanwhile, the United States ramps up war machines amid Iran war. U.S. readies next generation B-21 Raider stealth bomber. B-21 bomber can penetrate heavily defended airspace, and U.S. strikes $4.5 billion deal to boost the B-21 fleet. B-21 is more advanced than B-2 Spirit stealth bombers, which have been used by the United States against Iran, and new stealth bombers deployment is likely by 2027. So that's the latest. The United States is ramping up war machinery amid this raging West Asia war. In fact, it is readying next generation B-21 Raider stealth bomber. Now, B-21 bomber can penetrate heavily defended airspace also, and U.S. has struck a $4.5 billion deal to boost the B-21 fleet. Now, B-21 is more advanced than the B-2 Spirit stealth bombers, which have been used by the United States to attack the underground missiles and the nuclear weapons in Iran. And these new stealth bombers, the B-21 fleet deployment by the U.S. is likely by the year 2027. So the United States is working on ramping up its war machinery as the war rages on, and it is readying next generation B-21 Raider stealth bomber. Now, what are these stealth bombers? This B-21 stealth bomber is more advanced than the B-2 Spirit stealth bombers that the U.S. currently uses. In fact, it has also used it to drop 900 kgs of bomb on Iran to destroy its underground missiles and also its new weapons stockpile, and it has now struck a $4.5 billion deal to boost the B-21 fleet, and the deployment is likely by the year 2027. So the conflict in West Asia has a global impact on the crude oil prices also. The global oil prices have jumped above $110 a barrel. US-Israeli war with Iran has fueled fears of prolonged disruption to shipments through the Strait of Hormuz. Now, crude oil prices surged nearly 20% in just one day. Brent crude, the international standard for oil, crossed the $110 level in trade. Prices are the highest since Ukraine war fears in June 2022. Now, US and Israel launched fresh waves of airstrikes across Iran over the weekend, hitting multiple targets, including oil depots. Israel's strikes on fuel depots have gone far beyond what the US expected when Israel notified it in advance, sparking the first significant disagreement between the two allies since the war began on February 28th. Now, according to reports, US is miffed with Israel over strikes on oil depots, which could lead to global crude oil crisis. So there's a disagreement also which is being reported between the allies, that is the United States and Israel, over Israel carrying out strikes on oil depots in Iran's capital Tehran. This is the aftermath of the strikes which were carried out by Israel on the oil depots. Now, US is miffed because it did not expect the scale to be this huge, and it also said that it did not expect that the Israel would carry out such huge large-scale strikes on the oil depots that can also contribute to further the crisis, the oil crisis, the crude oil crisis. The crude oil prices are already at an all-time high. It has crossed the $110 mark, and it is at its all-time high after June 2022, and that is why the US is currently miffed with Israel over this move. So, US-Israel war on Iran fuels oil shock. Brent crude oil price. We'll be telling you about the price of the Brent crude oil that is at an all-time high. It has crossed the $110 per barrel mark, and there you see how the prices have increased over a period. And this is from June 25th, 2025, and the prices were highest during June 2022. That was because of the Ukraine war, and now what we're seeing that this is at an all-time high now, and in fact there was a 20% increase in just 24 hours, and crude oil prices have jumped after the Israeli attack on Iran's fuel depot, and it is going to have global implications. In fact, India is also likely to be hit because of these rising crude oil prices. And meanwhile, Israel has widened the scope of its strikes inside Iran, targeting key oil infrastructure in multiple locations. Massive explosions were reported at the Sharon oil depot and the Agdasia fuel facility in the Iranian capital, Tehran, and another major oil depot in neighboring Karaj. Videos from the site show towering flames and thick plumes of black smoke rising high into the sky. Israel said that it had struck Iranian missile sites, command centers, and also fuel depots. Iran's oil distribution company said that 4 of its employees were killed in these strikes. Now, this attack marks one of the most direct hits on Iran's energy infrastructure since the conflict escalates, raising fears of further retaliation as the West Asia war intensifies. So Israel has now attacked the oil depots. It has now targeted the energy infrastructure in Iran, and these are the visuals from 3 oil depots that were hit in the Israeli strikes in Iran's capital, Tehran, and which is not just impacting the crude oil, but it also has environmental implications, as there's also acid rain which is being reported that was witnessed in Tehran yesterday. In fact, toxic air is also spreading, pollution is also spreading across the capital, the Iranian capital. And US, if we talk about US is also miffed with these Israeli strikes that were carried out on the fuel depots. US is not happy about these strikes in which Israel targeted the fuel depot. So the attack is now the target is now only Israel is now targeting the energy infrastructure after the weapons and the nuclear weapons, the missiles. Now Israel is targeting the energy infrastructure in Iran, and in which it has struck fuel depots, several fuel depots in the Iranian capital, Tehran. So Israel has now widened the scope of its strikes inside Iran. It is now targeting key oil infrastructure in multiple locations, as you can see in these visuals. This is the aftermath of the strikes that were carried out by Israel on the fuel depots in Iran. Now let's take a look at the global implications, the global crude shock. So oil prices now soar past $100 for the first time in 4 years. After 2022, June 2022, they are at an all-time high. The Brent crude is trading above $110 per barrel. In fact, the oil prices could breach the $150 per barrel mark also. So that is what is being anticipated. And 20% of world's oil supply shipped through Strait of Hormuz. And that is why we're seeing the impact on the prices, the significant rise in the prices of Brent crude. Oil production has also been halted in some Gulf countries, and with these attacks that were carried out by Israel on the fuel depots in Iran, the situation becomes even worse. And so there's a cut in crude production, so there could be further squeeze in crude oil supply, which is expected soon. And Kuwait, UAE, Iraq cut oil production and also the refining output, and the production has been slashed after oil tanks were filled to the brim. There's no more space to store after the tanker movement was stalled. Saudi Arabia may start cutting production soon. So the rest of the Gulf countries have already stopped, and Saudi Arabia is also expected to start cutting production soon. So let's take a look at the big developments concerning the oil that have happened overnight. So the crude oil has hit $118, which is the highest since June 2022. So in June 2022, the prices were at an all-time high because of the Russia-Ukraine war. And now, because of the raging West Asia war, the crude oil price has hit $118 per barrel. Russian Urals oil prices spiked 26% in the last 24 hours. Asian stock markets tumble by up to 8% because of this. And dollar, meanwhile, continues to strengthen. US bond prices fall. And Iran, meanwhile, has hardened its stance, and it has crowned Khamenei's son Mojtaba as the supreme leader. And several Gulf nations have cut oil production and also refining unit. Now, the government says that oil products stocks are sufficient, and that is why they are cutting the oil production. Big India Today world exclusive. UN peacekeeping force in Lebanon. UN force has been deployed in Israel-Lebanon border. The UN interim force is in Lebanon, deployed on border between Israel and Lebanon in south, moving its forces after ground invasion by Israel in South Lebanon. So UN peacekeeping forces now in Lebanon after there was a ground invasion by Israel. Israel has deployed its forces at the border, the Israel-Lebanon border, and the UN peacekeeping force is now there in Lebanon. The UN force has been deployed at the Israel-Lebanon border. So they have been deployed on the border between Israel and Lebanon in south, and the Lebanon in south is moving its forces after there was a ground invasion by Israel in South Lebanon. Let's take a look at this report by my colleague Ashraf Wani, who is in fact present in South Lebanon, reporting from the war zone.
Saydun city of the Lebanon. This is the second biggest city of the Beirut, and here we are seeing the movement of UNIFIL, United Nations International Force. They are pushing away from the southern Lebanon, from the border, because there is the battle going on between Hezbollah and the Israeli army, and even these UNIFIL forces were targeted in the border area. That is why now, for the safety, they are also moving out from the areas and moving to other locations. Ashraf Wani, India Today, in Saydun, Lebanon.
So So that's the latest. That is what is happening at the Israel-Lebanon border. Remember, Israel continues to mount its attack on Lebanon, and amid that, what we're learning that the UN peacekeeping force has been deployed on the Lebanon-Israel border. In fact, my colleague Shweta Singh is also reporting from the war zone. She is in Israel. Shweta, as the war in West Asia rages on, how is Iran responding to the strikes which are being carried out by Israel and United States?
It has been another tense day and tense night here in Israel, with the air sirens sounding and people rushing to bomb shelters even in the thick of the night. On Sunday, Petah Tikva and northern Tel Aviv came under heavy attack, and there were reports of damages from a couple of locations. While there was a theory floating that probably the ballistic missiles that are being fired are actually fragmenting into cluster bombs and are spreading destruction in a range of 5 to 8 kilometers. Yet they officially they still want to investigate and then respond, because as of now the Israeli authorities have been saying that it is just the debris of a ballistic missile that was intercepted, a ballistic missile fired from Iran which was intercepted, and the fragments caused the damage.
Right. In fact, Shweta, the conflict in West Asia does not seem to end any time in the near future. Are there also possibilities that the United States and Israel can begin a ground offensive too?
Well, with the American intelligence agencies determining that either the Iran authorities or any other group could get access to the highly enriched uranium in Isfahan, which was bombed heavily last year by the US forces, this actually brings us to the question whether there can be a ground offensive. I think America has given enough indications that they want to go on with the air raids for a while so as to weaken Iran enough to enable their special forces to eventually, if they need to get into Iran. But I think at the back of all of this, they would know that there is a huge risk involved. As far as Benjamin Netanyahu goes, when he talks about the reasons for going into this war, he definitely points out that they did not want to give Iran the time so that this uranium could be pushed further inside the ground and quote unquote immune to any assault, and that is why they rushed into this particular offensive. But as far as going on the ground, getting boots on the ground inside Iran, I think both the countries will want to rethink that as much as they can. It would never be easy in Iran.
All right, Shweta, thank you for getting us all those details right from the war zone in Israel. Please stay safe. We'll keep coming back to you for more updates on the story that we're closely tracking. Welcome back. We're getting some breaking news on the West Asia war and the big development that has happened in Iran. Mojtaba Khamenei has been elected as the Iranian supreme leader. Khamenei's Ayatollah Ali Khamenei's second son, Mojtaba, is now the new supreme leader of Iran. He has been backed by the Iranian forces, and he has now become the new supreme leader of Iran after his father was killed in the joint strikes carried out by United States and Israel on Iran on February 28th. And Iranians call Mojtaba the most deserving leader. So that's the big development. Iran has named Mojtaba Khamenei to succeed his father, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, as the supreme leader. And Mojtaba is a mid-ranking cleric with influence inside Iran's security forces and also vast business networks under his father. Had been seen as a frontrunner in the lead-up to the vote by the assembly, and now he has been declared that he will be Iran's supreme leader after his father was killed in the strikes by US and Israel.
مجلس خبرگان حضرت آیت الله العظما سید مجتبی خامنه‌ای رهبر عزیز ما ولی فقیه ما الله اکبر Allahu Akbar.
این مجلس پس از بررسی‌های دقیق و گسترده و استفاده از ظرفیت اصل 108 قانون اساسی مطابق با وظیفه شرعی و اعتقاد به حضور در محضر خداوند متعال در اجلاسیه فوق العاده امروز آیت الله سید مجتبی حسینی خامنه‌ای حفظه الله تعالی را بر اساس رأی قاطع نمایندگان محترم مجلس خبرگان به عنوان سومین رهبر نظام مقدس جمهوری اسلامی ایران تعیین و معرفی می‌نماید.
So those were the Iranian anchors who got emotional while announcing this development that Mojtaba Khamenei, the second son of Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, has now been declared as the Iranian supreme leader. India Today Global's Pranay Upadhyay is now joining us with more details on this. Pranay, help us understand what are the factors and the reason that led to the elevation of Mojtaba Khamenei to become the supreme leader of Iran.
You know, Mojtaba Khamenei, who was the second son of Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, and in fact, he was working very closely with his father. And this is also a kind of a messaging because, Iran wanted to give the message that their regime, their power structure, their government cannot be destabilized and not shaken by these military strikes. And they have the robust structure that they have selection process as well, and the committee of experts, the 88 member expert committee has selected Mojtaba Ali Khamenei as the new supreme leader. And I think the factor behind Mojtaba Khamenei's selection is his proximity, the name of Ayatollah Ali Khamenei associated with him, and also the acceptance factor is also there because in such a turbulent time, the wider acceptance would be with Ayatollah Ali Khamenei's son, Mojtaba Khamenei. Though the other names were also going around, including the Al-Hamadol, Zallah's name or the Arifi's name were also there, but I think the wider acceptance and wider agreement was around Ayatollah Ali Khamenei's son, Mojtaba Khamenei, and I think now the biggest worry for Iran is how to protect Mojtaba Khamenei because Israeli defense forces and Israeli leadership has already made it clear that whosoever will become the new leader or new supreme leader will be their prime target. And also, President Donald Trump has also indicated that no leader will be acceptable unless United States is consulted in have a say in it, and in fact. He should be having a say in the selection process.
Right, Pranay, do stay with us. So that's a big update coming in from Iran, where Mojtaba Khamenei, the second son of Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, has been declared as the supreme leader of Iran. Let's take a look at some more developments coming in from Iran. And after the announcement of Mojtaba Khamenei to become the supreme leader of Iran, now US President Donald Trump has warned Iran over electing Mojtaba as the supreme leader. Trump has said that the new leader won't last long without his nod. So he's saying that his approval is a must. He is saying that Iran must take his approval before choosing the next supreme leader. Meanwhile, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has also warned Iran that the next ruler will also be targeted. So that's the big warning by Israel. On one hand, US is saying that Iran must take US nod before electing the next leader, and on the other hand, the Israeli Prime Minister is warning that the next ruler will also be targeted. In fact, Israel is also claiming that the incoming head of the military office of Iran's supreme leader, Abul Qasim Babayan, has been killed. So that is also what is being claimed by Israel. Pranay Upadhyay continues to stay with us. Pranay, is it lawful for one country to tell another country that their leader must have the nod from another country's leader?
Obviously, this is not neither it is legal, not it is generally acceptable. But the international law how it is being followed, under the current circumstances. And if you see, yesterday only, the Iranian Foreign Minister Syed Abbas Araghchi, in an interview with a U.S. news outlet, he said when he was asked about Mustafa Khamenei's selection process and the statement made by President Donald Trump, that he would want to have a say, and unless he has a say, the longevity of any new supreme leader will be under question. To which Abbas Araghchi said that this is totally unacceptable. This is the matter for the Iranian people to decide that whom they want to select as their new supreme leader. And Iran has a constitution, Iran has a process, and they will decide that who will be leading their country. And United States has no business to get into it.
Absolutely, Pranay, do stay with us. So, after Iran announced that Mojtaba Khamenei will be succeeding Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, and Mojtaba Khamenei is the second son of Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, there are warnings being issued by US and Israel. US is saying that the new leader must have the US nod. Donald Trump has claimed that Iran must take US approval for its new leader. On the other hand, Israel is saying that new ruler will also be attacked. So that is the warning from Israel. And amid these warnings and ultimatums, there are
Radyo Patrol 630.
Promise Ring, hindi ka mabibitin. With Bet828, hindi ka mabibitin sa laro. Secure at napakaraming payment options.
Do remember this. Misinformation moves faster than missiles. The war rages on, and so does the flood of videos. Every hour, new clips light up your screen. The explosions in the night, streaks across the sky, and fires and blasts. It's dramatic, it's scary, and there's also a good chance that it's not real. That is the big problem with wars in the age of social media and AI. There's a lot of fake news floating around. Some videos are authentic, some are old recycled clips, and some are entirely AI generated, designed to look real, feel urgent, and spread fast. So think before you hit forward, before you share. We have carefully compiled and verified the top videos from the last 24 hours that sum up this fighting, this war. And we're starting with video number 1. It's a clip of an F-15 jet being downed in Kuwait. You can see the jet going down, the pilot ejected just in time. Another clip shows the pilot parachuting to the ground. Initial reports said that this was not the only plane to be hit. They said several US warplanes had been downed, and Iran even claimed responsibility for taking down those planes. It said it had struck a US F-15 fighter jet. But the Americans have since clarified. They say that 3 American F-15 fighter jets were accidentally shot down by the Kuwaiti air defenses.
طيارة حربية طيارة حربية شوف يا واحد شوف هذا المسير يا ضبع شوف انزلوا هذول ايرانيين.
Video number 2 comes from Bahrain. Last night, thick black smoke hung over the capital, Manama. Iranian strikes targeted Bahrain's main naval base. This is an American base. It's the headquarters of the United States 5th Fleet. There's a British naval facility right next to it. An Iranian drone is believed to have hit close to this. No casualties have been reported so far, but the fire was massive. Flames lit up the night sky, and the smoke could be seen from miles away. not just Bahrain, Qatar, Jordan, and Kuwait. They're all home to US military bases. Most of them intercepted the missiles coming their way, but there was still some damage, especially from the falling debris. Yesterday we showed you curated videos of the operation. These were from Israel and the US. Today we'll show you a video from Iran. It's been released by the IRGC, the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps. They're sharing videos of their attacks, videos that show Iran going hypersonic, Iran launching the next generation Fateh 2 hypersonic missile.
March 2, 2026. Binomba ng mga Israeli fighter jet ang Beirut, kabisera ng Lebanon, na nagresulta sa pagkakasawi ng mahigit 30 katao. Ito ay kasunod ng pagpapadala ng Hezbollah ng mga missile at drone para tirahin ang Haifa, Northern Israel, na ganti naman daw ng Hezbollah para sa ginawa ng Israel at US na pagtira sa Iran na nagresulta sa kamatayan ng Supreme Leader ng Iran na si Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. Kung tutuusin, hindi naman na ito bago. Matagal naman nang nagtitirahan ng Israel at ang Hezbollah kahit noong nabubuhay pa si Khamenei. Pero bakit parang ang dami-dami yatang kaaway ng Israel? Bakit parang kahit saan ka na lang yata tumingin sa Middle East, may mga gustong patumbahin ng Israel? Ano ba ang ginawa ng Israel sa kanila? At ano ba ang ginawa nila sa Israel? Sa video na ito, pag-uusapan natin ang ugat nito mula sa kasaysayan. Ayon sa mga banal na kasulatan, ang mga Israelita ay nanggaling kay Jacob, na anak ni Isaac, na anak naman ni Abraham. Kalaunan, si Jacob ay tinawag na Israel. Si Jacob ay nagkaroon ng 2 asawa at 12 anak, at ang 12 anak na ito ang sinasabing mga ninuno ng 12 tribo ng Israel. Sa kanyang 2 asawa, ang mas mahal niya ay si Rachel, at kay Rachel nagkaroon siya ng 2 anak. Isa sa mga ito ay si Joseph. Si Joseph ang paborito niyang anak na ikinainggit naman ng mga kapatid ni Joseph. Sa inggit nila, binenta nila si Joseph sa mga Ehipto para maging isang alipin. Kung familiar ka sa mga Bible stories, itong Joseph na tinutukoy natin ay si Joseph the Dreamer. Kalaunan, si Joseph ay naging kanang kamay ng paraon o hari ng Ehipto. Ito ay dahil nahulaan niya ang tamang ibig sabihin ng naging panaginip ng paraon. Sa kabila ng masamang ginawa sa kanya ng kanyang mga kapatid, hindi nagtanim ng sama ng loob si Joseph. At ngayong makapangyarihan at mayaman na siya, ipinatawag niya ang kanyang buong pamilya para makasama niya na manirahan sa loob ng Ehipto. Sa paglipas ng panahon, dumami ang mga Israelita sa loob ng Ehipto na siya namang kinabahala ng paraon ng Ehipto noong mga panahong iyon. Kaya naisip niya para hindi na sila mas dumami, dapat ay gawin niya silang mga alipin. Di nagtagal, pinadala ng Diyos si Moises para iligtas ang mga Israelita mula sa pagkakaalipin sa Ehipto at dalhin sila sa lupang pangako. Matapos ang maraming taon ng paglalakbay, nakarating ang mga Israelita sa Kanaan, ang lupang pangako. Sa tulong ng Diyos, sinakop nila ang Kanaan at ito ang naging kaharian ng Israel. Dumaan sa maraming pagsubok ang kaharian ng Israel at maraming paghihirap ang naranasan ng mga Israelita. Isa na dito ang tinatawag na Jewish diaspora. Ang Jewish diaspora ay ang tawag sa koleksyon ng mga pangyayari na nagresulta sa pagkakakalat ng mga Hudyo sa iba't ibang mga parte ng mundo. Isa sa mga pinakamalaking naging bahagi ng Jewish diaspora ay noong panahong sinakop sila ng mga Romano. Pagdating ng 63 BCE, ang kaharian ng Israel ay tinatawag ng Judea at ang mga Israelita ay tinatawag ng mga Hudyo. Sa panahong ito, ang Judea ay sinakop ng Romanong general na si Pompey at ginawang isang lalawigan ng Imperyong Romano. Naging malupit sa mga Hudyo ang mga Romano, pero nagtiis lang ang mga Hudyo hanggang noong 66 CE, sumabog ang kanilang galit nang inangkin ng gobernador na si Gessius Florus ang pilak na dapat sana ay para sa kanilang templo. Ito ang naging mitya ng maraming taong pagrerebelde ng mga Hudyo laban sa mga Romano na nagresulta sa pagkakawasak ng kanilang templo at sa pagtatago ng maraming mga Hudyo sa iba't ibang mga lugar upang makaligtas sa pang-aapi ng mga Romano. Taong 132 to 135 CE nang maganap ang tinatawag na Bar Kokhba Revolt. Ito ang pinakahuling naging labanan sa pagitan ng mga Hudyo at mga Romano. Nung una, tila nananalo ang mga Hudyo, pero di nagtagal, bumawi ng matindi ang mga Romano. Dinurog ng husto ng mga Romano ang puwersa ng mga Hudyo, at para turuan sila ng leksyon, ay pinalayas sila sa Jerusalem at pinagbawalang bumalik. Pinalitan din ng mga Romano ang pangalan ng Judea at ginawa itong Syria-Palestina. Dito nanggaling ang pangalang Palestine. Sa paglipas ng panahon, dumaan ang Imperyong Romano sa maraming pagbabago. Isa na dito ang kanyang pagkakawatak-watak hanggang ang parte na may hawak sa Palestina ay naging ang Byzantine Empire. Pagdating ng taong 637, humina ang Byzantine Empire at hindi nila nagawang ipaglaban ang Palestine sa mga nananakop na Muslim sa ilalim ng Rashidun Caliphate. Mula noon, naging hawak na ng mga Muslim ang Palestine hanggang sa dumating ang mga tinatawag nating Crusades o Krusada. Pagdating ng ika-11 siglo ay kumalat na ng husto ang Kristyanismo maging sa mga makapangyarihang kaharian ng Europa. Pinangarap ng mga Kristiyano na muling mabawi mula sa mga Muslim ang Palestine o ang tinatawag nilang The Holy Land. Kaya naman sa tawag ng Santo Papa noon na si Urban II ay nagtipon-tipon ang libo-libong mga Kristiyano para sakupin ang Holy Land. Pagdating ng July 15, 1099, nasakop ng mga Kristiyano ang Jerusalem. Nagresulta ito sa pagpaslang sa libo-libong mga residente nito na mga Muslim at mga Hudyo. Sa pagkapanalo ng mga Kristiyano ay 4 na kaharian ang kanilang binuo. Ang Kingdom of Jerusalem, ang County of Odessa, ang Principality of Antioch at ang County of Tripoli. Hindi din naman nagtagal ang mga Kristiyano sa Holy Land. Pagdating ng 1291 sa tinatawag na Siege of Acre, natalo ang mga Kristiyano sa mga Muslim sa ilalim ng Mamluk Sultanate. Mula noon ay hindi na naalis sa kamay ng mga Muslim ang kontrol sa Palestine. Pagdating ng 1517, ang makapangyarihang Ottoman Empire naman mula sa Turkey ang humawak sa Palestine. Hindi naging madali ang Jewish diaspora para sa mga Hudyo. Kahit saan sila magpunta ay naging biktima sila ng pang-aabuso at pangungutya. Isang matinding halimbawa na lang nito ay ang nangyaring Edict of Expulsion noong 1492 kung saan lahat ng mga Hudyo ay pinalayas mula sa Espanya. Sa kabilang banda, naging mabuti naman para sa mga Hudyo ang Ottoman Empire. Kahit na mga Muslim ang namumuno sa Ottoman Empire, ay hinayaan nila ang mga Hudyo na magbalik sa Palestine. Sa ilalim din ng Ottoman Empire ay nagsimula at lumaki ang tinatawag na Zionism at dito rin naganap ang ilang mga mahahalagang aliyah. Ang Zionism pala ay isang ideolohiya o kilusan na naglalayon na muling buhayin ang kaharian ng Israel at ibalik ito sa kamay ng mga Hudyo. Ang aliyah naman na ang ibig sabihin ay ascent o pag-angat ay ang mga events kung saan maramihang mga Hudyo ang nagbalik sa Palestine. Ang Zionism ay nagsimula sa Europa dahil na rin sa mga pang-aapi sa mga Hudyo.
Tara na! Taste the summer with San Miguel Beer! Tara na, sumama na! San Miguel Beer, buksan na! Sa summer na! San Miguel!
Zionism ay nagsimula sa Europa dahil na rin sa mga pang-aapi sa mga Hudyo. Sa pangunguna ni Theodor Herzl ay naganap ang First Zionist Congress noong 1897 sa Switzerland. Sa First Zionist Congress, pinahayag ang Zionism bilang isang opisyal na ideolohiyang pampolitikal at dito rin nilatag ang mga pundasyon para maitatag ang bansang tinatawag na natin ngayon na Israel. Ang pinakaunang aliyah ay naganap sa pagitan ng 1882 at 1903 kung saan mahigit kumulang 25,000 mga Hudyo galing sa Romania at sa Russia ang nagbalik sa Palestine. Dito na nabuo ang ilan sa mga komunidad ng mga Hudyo sa loob ng Palestine. Naging mahirap ang buhay nila pero tinulungan naman sila ng mga mayayamang Hudyo sa labas ng Palestine tulad ni Baron Edmond de Rothschild. Sa pagitan naman ng 1904 to 1914 ay nangyari ang Second Aliyah kung saan 40,000 naman na mga Hudyo galing sa Eastern Europe ang nagbalik sa Palestine. Dahil dito, lumaki ng husto ang mga komunidad ng mga Hudyo sa Palestine at naitayo ang syudad ng Tel Aviv noong 1909. 1914 na maganap ang World War I sa pagitan ng mga tinatawag na Central Powers at Allied Powers. Ang Ottoman Empire kung saan nakabilang ang Palestine ay kumampi sa mga Central Powers. Pagdating ng 1917 ay nahulog sa kamay ng UK ang Palestine. Para makuha nila ang suporta ng mga Hudyo, pinangako nila sa mga Hudyo na susuportahan nila ang mga ito sa pagtatayo nila ng sarili nilang bansa. Ito ang tinatawag na Balfour Declaration. Ang hindi alam ng mga Hudyo ay pinangakuan din ng UK na susuportahan nila ang mga Arabo para sa isang independenteng Palestine. Natapos ang giyera at tuloy ang nanalo ang mga Allied Powers. At ngayon, lumapit na ang mga Hudyo at ang mga Arabo sa UK para sa mga ipinangako sa kanila. Siyempre, hindi naman makapagdesisyon basta-basta ang UK dahil ang pinangako nila sa mga Hudyo at ang pinangako nila sa mga Arabo ay dalawang magkasalungat na bagay. Sa puntong ito, mataas na ang tensyon sa pagitan ng mga Arabo at mga Hudyo sa loob ng Palestine. Para sa mga Arabo, ang mga dumarating na mga Hudyo ay nangaagaw ng kanilang lupa. Para naman sa mga Hudyo, ito ang lupa ng kanilang mga ninuno at ang mga Arabo ang tunay na mga agaw. Naipit ang UK sa gitna. Kapag tinupad nila ang pangako sa isang grupo, ay siguradong magagalit at magiging kalaban nila ang kabilang grupo. Kaya naman noong 1937 sa ilalim ng Peel Commission ay pinanukala ng UK na hatiin na lamang ang Palestine. Ang isang hati para sa mga Hudyo, ang isang hati para sa mga Arabo. Siyempre, parehong hindi natuwa ang mga Hudyo at ang mga Arabo dahil ang pinangako sa kanila ay ang buong Palestine. Dumating ang World War II at dito naganap ang pinakamalaking pagsubok para sa mga Hudyo. Ito ang tinatawag na Holocaust. Kung maalala nyo, natalo ang mga Central Powers noong World War I at isa sa kanila ang Germany. Sinisi ng Germany sa mga Hudyo ang kanilang pagkatalo sa gera at ang sumunod na pagbagsak ng kanilang ekonomiya. Dito lumakas ng husto ang kapangyarihan ng Nazi Party sa ilalim ni Adolf Hitler. Para sa mga Nazi, ang master race ay ang lahing Aryano at sila dapat ang mamuno sa sangkatauhan. Samantala, ang mga mabababang lahi naman kagaya ng lahi ng mga Hudyo ay dapat burahin mula sa mundo. Sa pangunguna ni Adolf Hitler at ng kanyang Nazi Party, 6 na milyong Hudyo ang napaslang hindi lang sa Germany kundi sa buong Europa. Dahil sa kalupitang ito na dinanas ng mga Hudyo, lalo na sa Europa, madami sa kanila ang nagtangka na tumakas papuntang Palestine. Nakita rin ng buong mundo ang ginawa sa mga Hudyo at maraming mga bansa ang sumuporta sa kanila. Sa kabilang banda, ang biglaang pagdating ng napakaraming mga Hudyo mula sa Europa ay lalong ikinagalit ng mga Arabo sa Palestine. Para maiwasan ng UK ang galit ng mga Arabo, sinubukan nila na pigilan ang pagpasok ng mga Hudyo sa Palestine. Pero ikinagalit naman ito ng mga Hudyo sa Palestine. Kaya ngayon, naging kaaway pareho ng UK ang mga Arabo at ang mga Hudyo sa loob ng Palestine. Pagdating ng 1947 ay hindi na kinaya ng UK ang sitwasyon kaya inakyat nila ito sa United Nations. Noong November 29, 1947, sa ilalim ng United Nations General Assembly Resolution 181 ay ibinalik ang plano na paghatian ng mga Hudyo at ng mga Arabo ang Palestine. Ikinatuwa ito ng mga Hudyo pero ikinagalit naman ito ng mga Arabo. Formal na umalis ang UK mula sa Palestine noong May 1948. Sa pag-alis ng UK mula sa Palestine ay formal na dineklara ng mga Hudyo ang kanilang bansang Israel noong May 14, 1948. Lubos itong ikinagalit ng mga Arabo, kaya kinabukasan, ang kakadeklara pa lang na bagong bansang Israel ay magkakasabay na sinugod ng mga militar ng Egypt, Jordan, Syria at Iraq. Ito ang tinatawag na First Arab-Israeli War. Tila isang milagro nang manalo ang Israel laban sa pinagsama-samang puwersa ng 4 na bansang ito. Pero hindi lang yun. Nagawa pa nilang sakupin ang mahigit 78% ng lupa na dapat ay nilaan para sa mga Arabo ng Palestine. Ang natitirang teritoryo naman na hindi nahulog sa kamay ng Israel ay hinawakan ng Jordan at ng Egypt. Ang West Bank at East Jerusalem ay hinawakan ng Jordan, samantalang ang Gaza Strip naman ay hinawakan ng Egypt. Ang pagkatalong ito ng mga Arabo ay tinawag na Nakba ng mga Palestino. At ito ang pinakauna at isa sa mga pinakamalalim na ugat kung bakit masama ang loob ng mga Arabo sa Israel. Pagdating ng 1964, nagtipon-tipon ang mga kaaway ng Israel sa Cairo, Egypt at binuo nila ang tinatawag na PLO o Palestine Liberation Organization. Ang misyon ng PLO ay ibalik sa kamay ng mga Palestino ang lupain ng Palestine. Pagdating ng May 1967 ay muling tumaas ang tensyon sa pagitan ng Israel at ng mga bansang Arabo. Ang presidente kasi noon ng Egypt na si Gamal Abdel Nasser ay nagpadala ng isang malaking puwersa militar malapit sa border ng Israel sa Sinai Peninsula. Sinubukan din ng presidente ng Egypt na palayasin ang mga UN peacekeepers sa lugar. Nagpadala din sila ng mga barko para harangan ang Strait of Tiran kung saan dumadaan ang mga barko na nanggagaling sa Israel. Kasabay nito ay kumilos din ang mga militar ng Jordan at Syria at lumapit sa border ng Israel. Para sa Israel, tila naghahanda ang mga Arabo na muli silang sakupin. Kaya naman noong June 5, 1947, inunahan na ng Israel ang mga Arabo at nagpadala ng airstrike papuntang Egypt para wasakin ang mga airbase nito. Sinunod na rin nila ang Jordan at ang Syria. Natapos ang labanan sa loob lang ng 6 na araw kaya tinawag ito na Six-Day War. Nanalo muli ang Israel at muling lumaki ang kanilang teritoryo dahil napunta sa kanilang kontrol ang mga teritoryo ng Palestine na noon ay hawak ng Egypt at ng Jordan. Hindi pa dito nagtapos ang pagtatangka ng mga Arabo na sakupin ng Israel dahil noong 1973 habang pinagdiriwang ng mga Hudyo ang isang importanteng holiday na tinatawag na Yom Kippur, magkasabay na sumugod ang Egypt at ang Syria. Ito ang tinatawag na Yom Kippur War. Nung umpisa, tila nananalo ang Egypt at Syria pero hindi nagtagal ay bumaliktad ang sitwasyon at muli silang natalo ng mga Hudyo. Di nagtagal, parehong napagtanto ng Egypt at ng Israel na walang patutunguhan ang palagi ang paglalaban. Kaya naman noong September 17, 1978, nagkaroon sila ng peace talks sa tinatawag na Camp David Accords. Dito ay opisyal na nirecognize ng Egypt ang Israel bilang isang independenteng bansa. Kahit na wala na ang Egypt, ang PLO ay patuloy pa rin na nakipaglaban sa Israel. Noong 1982, ang Israel naman ang sumugod sa Lebanon para patalsikin ang mga miyembro ng PLO na nakabase dito. Ang ginamit nilang dahilan ay ang pagtatangka daw ng PLO na paslangin ang kanilang ambassador sa UK na si Shlomo Argo. Pagtatangka daw ng PLO na paslangin ang kanilang ambassador sa UK na si Shlomo Argo. Habang nasa Lebanon ay palihim silang tinutulungan ng Lebanese Forces, isang militant organization na binubuo ng mga Kristiyano sa Lebanon. Bilang pagtanaw ng utang na loob at dahil kailangan nila ng presidente sa gobyerno ng Lebanon na papabor sa kapayapaan, tinulungan ng Israel na manalo sa pagkapresidente noong August 23, 1982 ang leader ng Lebanese Forces na si Bashir Gamayel. Sa kasamaang palad, ilang linggo lang noong September 14, 1982 ay nasawi si Gamayel sa isang pagsabog. Pagkalipas ng ilang araw mula nang masawi si Gamayel ay umalis na rin ang Israel sa Lebanon. Ang ginawang pagsugod ng Israel ay ikinagalit ng maraming mga organisasyon sa loob ng Lebanon. Kasama na dito ang Islamic Students Union na sa kalaunan ay tinawag na Hezbollah. Noong December 8, 1987, nagkaroon ng isang matinding aksidente kung saan ang isang Israeli military truck ay umararo ng ilang mga kotse sa Erez Crossing. 4 na Palestinian ang nasawi at ilan pa ang nasugatan sa nangyaring aksidente. Para sa maraming mga Palestino, tila hindi aksidente ang nangyari kung hindi sinasadya ng mga Israeli. At ito ang naging mitya ng tinatawag na First Antifada. Ang First Antifada ay hindi isang pangyayari lamang, kundi koleksyon ng maraming mga kilos protesta ng mga karahasan sa pagitan ng mga Palestino at ng mga Israeli. Sa gitna ng First Antifada nabuo ang mga organisasyon tulad ng Hamas at ang PIJ o Palestinian Islamic Jihad na kumakalaban sa Israel at nais pabagsakin ito. Natapos ang First Antifada noong 1993 matapos ang ilang mga negosasyon sa pagitan ng mga Israeli at ng mga Palestino. Ito ang tinatawag na Oslo Accords. Naging epektibo ang Oslo Accords para mapigilan ang karahasan na dala ng First Antifada. Pero ang mga kakulangan nito ay naging siyang dahilan din para maganap ang Second Antifada noong September 2000. Una kasi, hindi na pagkasunduan sa Oslo Accords kung aling mga teritoryo ang sa Israel at kung aling mga teritoryo ang sa Palestine. Kasama na dito ang West Bank na para sa Palestine ay kanila pero maraming mga Israeli settlements doon. Ikalawa, hindi rin naging malinaw sa ilalim ng Oslo Accords kung sino talaga ang magmamay-ari ng Jerusalem. Kung hindi ninyo alam, ang Jerusalem ay hindi lang mahalaga para sa mga Kristiyano, kundi napakahalaga din para sa mga Muslim at sa mga Hudyo. Para kasi sa mga Hudyo, ang Jerusalem ay kabisera ng dating kaharian ng Israel. Dito rin itinayo ang kanilang mga sagradong templo. Para naman sa mga Muslim, sa Jerusalem umakyat sa langit ang propetang Muhammad. Dito rin nakatayo ang kanilang ikatlong pinakamahalagang holy site, ang Moske ng Al-Aqsa. Ang naging mitya ng Second Antifada ay ang pagbisita ng Israeli opposition leader na si Ariel Sharon sa Temple Mount o sa compound ng kinikilala ng mga Muslim na Al-Aqsa Mosque. Tulad ng sabi ko kanina, parehong tinuturing ng mga Muslim at ng mga Hudyo na banal na lugar ang Jerusalem. Ang ilang mga site sa Jerusalem, katulad nga nitong Mosque ng Al-Aqsa, ay meron ding historical significance para sa mga Hudyo. Ang compound ng Al-Aqsa Mosque ay ang lugar din kung saan nakatayo ang dating templo ni Solomon. Kaya naman para sa mga Hudyo kagaya ni Ariel Sharon, walang masama sa pagbisita sa Temple Mount. Para naman sa mga Muslim, ang pagbisitang ito ng isang Hudyo sa kanilang holy site ay isang malaking kalapastanganan na nagresulta sa kanilang matinding pagkagalit. Ito ang naging simula ng tinatawag natin ngayon na Second Antifada na nagresulta sa pagkakasawi ng libo-libong mga Palestino at mga Hudyo. Pagkatapos ng makailang mga negosasyon sa pagitan ng mga Israeli at mga Palestino ay natapos ang Second Antifada noong 2004. Isa rin sa mga naging dahilan ng pagtatapos ng Second Antifada ay ang pagkakamatay ni Yasser Arafat na founder ng Fatah at chairman ng PLO. Ito ang kasaysayan sa likod ng pagkakatatag ng Israel na kilala natin ngayon. Ang pagkakatatag din mismo ng bansang Israel na kilala natin ngayon ang siyang ugat ng marami sa mga hidwaan sa pagitan ng Israel at mga bansa at organisasyon na kaaway nito. Marami pang mga mahalagang parte ng kasaysayan na hindi ko na naisali sa video na ito. Pag-usapan na lang natin ang mga yon sa iba pang video. Si Coach Jonel po ito. I'll see you next video. Bye.
It's the 13th of June, and Tehran is under attack.
Moments ago, Israel launched Operation Rising Lion, a targeted military operation to roll back the Iranian threat to Israel's very survival.
Iran fired back. For 12 days, the world held its breath as the two mortal enemies traded blows.
We struck at the heart of Iran's nuclear enrichment program. We struck at the heart of Iran's nuclear weaponization program.
They started this, Iran's supreme leader said.
Introducing the new Isuzu UX. Take the lead.
New UFC Oriental Soups. Plenty of bits and authentic Chinese flavor.
Kapag kalusugan na ang nakataya, ibang usapan na yan.
Afford ko ba yan? Tutuloy-tuloy ko ba yan?
Kapag bibili ng gamot, vitamins o
the death of their supreme leader. And therefore, we should understand the culture of the people of this region, that they do not want foreign intervention in their own affairs. And the American, what they have been doing, they are using the pretext of the nuclear program of Iran as a reason for attacking Iran. But now you see they're attacking a civilian, they're attacking the leadership and talking of a regime change. That's not the objective. Then the American hub was deceiving the rest of the world. So America is implementing its own objective. They want Iran along with Israel, and that's what they wanted to achieve. Disintegration of Iran, weakening of their nuclear program, and weakening of their ballistic missile technology program, and also killing the scientists like they have done in Iraq in 2003 when the American invaded Iraq. So therefore, those sort of a pretext does not give any kind of leverage for the United States to have a legitimate kind of a policeman of the world like any sovereign nation.
I hear your point, Dr. Awad, but do you think it is possible? Can the US bring about a regime change in Iran at this juncture, and the way they've started with the preemptive strikes? Is that where it's going to end? Is it possible?
No, the United States is not interested in the regime change currently. Before they destroy the whole of Iran, Shivam, this is what I'm trying to explain to you. It is not the regime change like they have done in Venezuela. They hijacked the president and his wife and replaced them with opposition, and then they signed the oil deal for 40 years that they're selling the oil to the American company. Tomorrow they will release Maduro. Here is a different story. There is a country called Israel which has wanted to expand at the coast of the neighboring country from Euphrates to Nile. They wanted to establish a greater Israel, and it is only Iran in the region which have creating this hurdle for the American and Israeli ambition. So therefore, destruction of Iran is the main objective. Then follows if the regime falls, how long does it take? Nobody ignored that America is a supreme power. But I think with the painful attack by the Iranian and causing pain to the American, maybe there will be lots of changes before that fall.
Dr. Awad, I would like to understand from you, whatever you can share with us on this front, the Shia community. For the Shia community or Shia Islam's, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei was a revered figure. How do you feel the Shia community is now going to be responding with what has happened with the death of the Ayatollah? What kind of a community is it? And how long do they go on? Do they harbor seeds of revenge, or is there something else that this community will come together into? Are we looking at that kind of retaliation coming in, or will it largely be an Iranian agitation or an Iranian retaliation, not a community retaliation from across the world?
Look, you understand that attacking any religious leader, irrespective whether he's a Shia, Sunni, Christian, Hindu, or a Jew, it's going to have a ramification and impact on the community or the followers. That's the natural of a human being to react. And the Iranian and the long of the Shia all over the world had a great respect for Ayatollah Khamenei, and also they were sympathizing with Iran, and because he was a very soft-spoken person, and he had a community to serve, and we all knew about it, and that's why there was an outrage all over the world, including the Sunni countries and Sunni followers. In fact, he had a huge respect. But now when you're attacking, that means you wanted ultimatum goal for the US and for the West is to make a division among the Muslim people, that it is at the end of the day it's going to be a Shia-Sunni fight. And that is why the American military bases are mostly in the Sunni areas, have been under attack, and now tomorrow they will drag them into a war between Iran and the Arab countries. So therefore, we need to understand it's not that you are killing one person because you wanted to achieve a regime change. In fact, when you're killing a civilian and a supreme leaders of religious, you wanted to create more of a fundamentalism, more of a revenge and retributions against such kind of killing. And that's what happened now. Why now Hezbollah in Lebanon have taken part in this war? He said it's a revenge for the killing of it. Why the Popular Front in Iraq also have come up front, whether the Shia community, it's also attacking American interests because of this. Similarly from Yemen. So then if you knew the consequences, why you started the fire?
Dr. Awad, let me also just take a little further from there. You mentioned that they're trying to create that divide among Muslims. I wanted to bring to your attention this report, and this is for all our viewers, that the Saudi Crown Prince was very much in touch with the US side. Now, these are reports that it was with his insistence only that these preemptive strikes were carried out. So that would suggest, and Saudi Arabia is predominantly Sunni. Now, keeping Sunni Shia aside, and my point is there, the Gulf countries are very much in favor of what is happening. Do you read it that way?
No, I don't think so. Look, if you carry out these stories, which has been published by the Washington Post, that's what they have been saying it for some time, that there was a kind of pushing from Saudi Arabia to Israel and United States to go. Then we wouldn't have seen the Graham, the senators of the United States, accusing Saudi Arabia of taking part or siding with Iran, especially when the mediations that they were requesting U.S. they defer this attack on Iran and stop and look for a political solution. None of the Arab country, by the way, none of the Gulf country, nobody in the region but Israel wanted to go for this war. Even the Iranian told America.
Pardon me, I'm butting in, but none of the Gulf countries, none of the GCC, they've condemned US or Israel. They're only condemning Iran for attacking their land, and that's rightly done. But none of them are unequivocally mentioning that what US or Israel has done in terms of those preemptive strikes, even though there was no sign of Iran carrying out a strike first, they've not condemned that in unequivocal terms.
No, but that doesn't mean they were endorsing the attack at all, not at all. They have already made it very clear that they were against the war and they have been trying to mediate. And you have seen the Qatari, the UAE, the Saudis have been pushing the American president not to go for this war. But I think the Iranian early attack on those capitals of the Arab GCC country in particular have led to this early condemnation of the Iranian attack on their own territories.
Dr. Awad, thank you so much for making time for us and sharing all your insights. There will be lots more to discuss. I would love to have you for your perspective again.
Thank you for having me.
Well, the Israel-US war on Iran has spiraled into a full-blown conflict across West Asia, and both sides continue to intensify attacks. In the latest, sirens have been heard in Dubai and loud explosions have been reported in Abu Dhabi. Action continues in Iran too. Plumes of smoke were seen rising across various parts of Tehran as US-Israeli airstrikes continued to pound the Iranian capital. Israeli military says it has begun a fresh wave of large-scale strikes across and the missiles were fired from the USS Bainbridge warship. On the other hand, Israel too released a video showing aerial strikes on what it says were missile launches in Iran. Israeli airstrikes also hit the Hezbollah strongholds of South Beirut after Israel issued a warning to the residents. According to Lebanon's health ministry, at least 3 people have been killed in Israeli strikes along Beirut's airport highway. Lebanese authorities say a total of 102 people have been killed in the Israeli strikes so far. As the fighting escalates, Israeli tanks were seen being transferred to the border with Lebanon. Now, Iran continues to retaliate to the Israeli-US attack. It launched a new wave of strikes across the Gulf. Fresh round of explosions were heard over the Qatari capital Doha, with Qatar's defense ministry saying its military intercepted an incoming missile attack. Qatar has also begun evacuating residents living near the US embassy in Doha as a precautionary measure. The war has now spilled beyond West Asia after a pair of Iranian drones flew across the border into Azerbaijan and injured 2 people at an airport in the Nakhchivan exclave. Another drone landed close to a school building in a nearby village. Azerbaijan President Ilham Aliyev has accused Iran of terrorism and vowed to retaliate. Iran, on the other hand, has blamed Israel for the attack. Iran also launched a fresh round of missiles at Israel. Explosions were heard in Jerusalem after warnings of incoming Iranian missile fire. Iran's Revolutionary Guards claim they hit an US oil tanker with a missile in the north of the Persian Gulf and set it on fire. The alleged attack comes hours after Iran vowed to avenge the sinking of its warship in the Indian Ocean. Earlier, US Secretary of War Pete Hegseth had confirmed that the US torpedoed and sank an Iranian frigate off the coast of Sri Lanka. As the Gulf faces the heat of Iranian retaliation, France has allowed US aircraft on some of its bases in West Asia, and this comes after Spain came under intense US pressure for refusing to allow Washington to use its bases. However, Spain has said that it will send its most advanced frigate to protect Cyprus after a drone strike on the British base Akrotiri.
Big development coming in, viewers. Iran has launched a new wave of attacks across West Asia. Explosions were heard in Jerusalem after the Israeli military said that it had identified missiles launched from Iran, triggering air raid sirens. There were no immediate reports of any direct impact, and the blasts could be the result of attempts to intercept incoming missiles. Loud explosions were also heard across the Gulf cities of Dubai, Abu Dhabi, Doha, Manama, as Tehran pressed into the third day of strikes against Gulf neighbors, especially UAE, Qatar and Bahrain. And this is in response to the US-Israeli air raids. Reports say several loud blasts were heard. They were heard in the Qatari and Bahraini capitals, as well as in the United Arab Emirates, Dubai and Abu Dhabi. To discuss all that is happening by the minute, I'm now being joined by senior international journalist Dr. Wael Awad, joining us from New Delhi. Dr. Awad, thank you so much for making time for us and meeting me here on the broadcast. So let me start right away. The latest reports are now suggesting that the Pentagon has told a congressional committee that there were no signs that Iran was going to hit the US first. So when they say that they carried out preemptive strikes, what really were they preempting when there were no signs of Iran's first attack?
Thank you for having me. I don't think the United States is, the people of the United States understand what is their president have been doing, because this is an illegal war. There was no danger to the United States. There was no attack on the U.S. citizen. So this was unilaterally carried out operation along with the Israelis, and that's what everybody knows the story, that the United States, President Trump in particular, went with this war along with his Prime Minister of Israel, Netanyahu, and they started the attack on Iran, which is illegitimate and illegal, and it's violating all international law and UN Charter, and Iran is retaliating against this war, which is going on right now in many fronts, actually. Now many parties are taking part, Hezbollah in south of Lebanon, started also the attack, including the Houthis, the Ansarullah in Yemen, and the Iranian attacking many of the American bases in the region. So it's going to be an all-out war, a regional war, which is having a very, very dangerous fallback on the countries in the region and also on the future of the global oil and trade from this part of the world.
Dr. Awad, you mentioned Iran. Let me come to that next. What do you feel Iran is trying to achieve at this point, the way it is firing across the Gulf region, and of course on Israel as well, along with the militias that are backed by Iran? I just want to also highlight for our viewers, because very recently the foreign minister of Iran mentioned that there was they did not mean for the attack on Oman, and that the army or the defense forces, the military, it's isolated and moving independently. So who's really taking the decisions in Iran? Because at this point, there are groupings of countries which are forming. Even the Western countries are opening their own bases for the US to use to attack Iran. And at this point, along with this, Iran is going after maritime facilities and ports in Bahrain and in Abu Dhabi, in UAE as well. How long does Iran plan to sustain this kind of a multifaceted channel of attack?
Look, when the United States was taking part in this war, Iran have sent a warning to all the countries in the region, telling them that the American military bases are legitimate target for the Iranian if the American attack. So after the American attack, immediately the Iranians start attacking the military bases of the United States in these countries. And they have continued till this moment that they have been firing rockets and drones into the Abu Dhabi or Kuwait or Bahrain or Oman. All these countries have been a legitimate target for the Iranian. Even Cyprus, actually, one of the military bases there, because UK is now taking part in this attack on Iran, and Germany as well. So therefore, these are the issues. However, this does not give the Iranian the legitimacy or the right to attack civilian targets or airports or any civilian installation in any of the countries. And there was a condemnation from the Arab capitals, especially from the Gulf states. The GCC met emergency meeting and condemned the Iranian attack. But this was the warning earlier, and Iran the point of view that these are military bases which have no control of this country, respected, have no control on it. It is run by the American military. So therefore, this is the actual situation on the ground. This is tell you exactly why the United States is fighting two wars here, in fact. It's fighting a war where they are, it's a superpower war where they wanted to take control of the Strait of Hormuz, the Red Sea, the Mediterranean, and that's
I now come to the most important moment in this talk. I want to share with you my political and spiritual vibration here. And that is that I have come to the conclusion that Allah gives them staircases of silver and ropes of silver. They fly high until He brings them down. The United States is flying high now because it's about to crash. We are located at that moment in time when a day which is like a month is about to end, and a day which is like a week is about to commence. When it does occur, it will confirm what I'm saying. When Britain became the ruling state in the world, Britain took control of the money of the world, and the sterling pound was the international currency. And then when the United States took over from Britain as the ruling state in the world, the United States could not be the ruling state in the world without taking control of the money of the world. And so the US dollar replaced the sterling pound as the international currency. This took place at the Bretton Woods Conference, the Bretton Woods Accord in upstate New York. And I'm saying to you, if you look at the world of money, you would see the writing is on the wall. That the Bretton Woods Accord is collapsing. It has already collapsed. And a new international monetary system is around the corner, in which the US dollar will disappear. And when the US dollar crashes, the American economy will crash with it. Flying high, the Dow Jones flying high. I want to suggest to you that the September 11 attack on America bears an uncanny similarity to the attack of the summer of 1914. And that the events which are now unfolding in the world, the attack on Afghanistan, the attack on Iraq, the new American imperium that is taking over the world, are all meant to serve one mission: to pave the way for the state of Israel to wage a big war. And as a consequence of that big war that Israel is going to wage, the territory of the state of Israel is going to dramatically expand to encompass the biblical frontiers of Israel, of the Holy Land. Bible says, from the river of Egypt to the river Euphrates. That's not true. The Quran proves that that is false. The Holy Land does not exist from the river of Egypt to the river Euphrates. That is false. But it's there in the Bible. They put it in. And so Israel has to wage a big war which will dramatically expand the territory of the state so that Israel will control the Suez Canal tomorrow. And Israel will control the oil of the Gulf tomorrow. And there will be a concomitant attack on the US dollar. And the US dollar collapses, and when it collapses, it will bring down the whole world of paper money with it. This is our lecture on Islam and the international monetary system. When Israel wages that big war, I expect that Israel will unleash weapons of warfare we've never seen before. And at the end of it, Israel will take over from the United States as the new ruling state in the world. But Israel cannot wage that war while still there are any significant obstacles in the way. And now put on your thinking caps. which is the most significant obstacle which still stands in the way of Israel waging a big war? Is it a man named Osama bin Laden and his men hiding in caves in Afghanistan? Is it that blue-eyed stooge of the Yankee, a man named Saddam Hussein? Are they significant obstacles in the path of Israel? Is it Taliban in Afghanistan? Wake up. None of these are significant obstacles in the path of Israel. Israel has one major obstacle in its way that must be removed before Israel can wage that big war, and it is Pakistan's nuclear weapons capacity. And coupled with that is Iran's missile capacity. And so all the hullabaloo we're going through now, all the maneuverings on the chessboard of the world, are all intended to culminate with the destruction of Pakistan's nuclear capacity. That is around the corner. That's about to take place. When Israel wages that big war and replaces the United States as the ruling state in the world, the first ruling state was Britain. The second ruling state was the United States. The third and the last would be this imposter, State of Israel. I am suggesting to you that Dajjal, or the Antichrist, would now have completed stage 2, a day which is like a month, and would be commencing stage 3, a day which is like a week, meaning a much shorter period of time. It is at this time that terrorism reaches its climax. They not only attacked Sheikh Ahmad Yassin in an act of state terrorism that Washington did not see. They have now attacked and killed Abdulaziz Rantisi, and they have declared that they're going to continue killing all those who dare to lift their hands against the State of Israel. This is the biggest terrorist of all in the world, the State of Israel. But CNN will never tell you that. When Israel becomes the ruling state in the world, it is at that time that Muslims and Black Christian Africa, these two are brothers with each other. Black Christian Africa, Black Christian Africa opened their arms to Muslims when we were being persecuted, when war on Islam was being waged in the lifetime of Nabi Muhammad alayhi salatu. And a Christian king, a black Christian king in Africa protected us. I will never send them back to you, he said. And he looked at Islam and he looked at Christianity and he said, that which divides us from you is no more than this line in the sand, the Negus of Abyssinia. So too it was at that time. So too again it is today. The major attacks that Israel will launch will be on Muslims and Black Christian Africans. There is going to be an end of history, says Christianity, when God will return in the person of Nabi Isa alayhi salam. And when he comes back, he's going to come back to Jerusalem. And so history will end in the Holy Land. with the return of Jesus, alayhi salam. And that return of Jesus, alayhi salam, would validate the Christian claim to truth. Before Jesus can return to the Holy Land, most Christians are agreed that the holy state of Israel will have to be restored. So when they saw an Israel born in 1948, most Christians have come to the conclusion that this is the holy Israel of Nabi Dawood, the Prophet David, alayhi salam, and Nabi Sulaiman, the Prophet Solomon, alayhi salam. And that it is as a consequence of the restoration of holy Israel in the Holy Land that we can now conclude that we are close to the end of history, and that the return of Jesus, alayhi salam, is close. It is at hand. This has had a profound influence on foreign policy in the United States of America, based on this vision of the end of history, and that Muslims are the obstacle in the way for the triumph and validation of the Christian claim to truth in Holy Jerusalem. We now come to the Jewish view of the end of history. That in the same way that the Hindus hold the view that they are a chosen people, they are the elite of mankind, the Brahman, so too the Jews share with the Christians this belief that they are the chosen people of all of mankind, and that heaven is reserved for them. And I invite them from this Masjid al-Hidayah here in Kuala Lumpur, I invite them to kindly correct me if I'm wrong. That they are the elite of mankind, that heaven is reserved for them, that the golden age of Judaism was that moment in time when the Prophet David, Nabi Dawood alayhi salam, established the holy state of Israel, and that holy Israel ruled the world from Jerusalem, and that his son, the Prophet Solomon, Nabi Sulaiman alayhi salam, built the temple, the masjid, and took that Israel to its supreme position of power in the world. An example of which was the story of the Queen of Sheba, Saba, in the Quran, and how it played out. This is the power of Holy Israel. That Holy Israel is the ruling state in the world. What do we mean by a ruling state? A ruling state does not have to rule every square inch of the suburbs of Chicago and every square inch of the suburbs of Bombay. No. When we use the term ruling state, we mean that no rival or no community of rivals, no group of rivals could possibly supersede the power and status of the state. Hence, the ruling state in the world. This was the golden age when the Jews ruled the world. And history cannot end until that golden age is restored. That a promised Messiah, divinely promised Messiah, will come. And when he comes, he will rule the world from holy Jerusalem, from the state of Israel. And this will bring back that golden age. And this will be the validation of Judaism's claim to truth. In the same way that the Christians concluded, Jesus is coming back soon. Here is the evidence. Here is the evidence that Israel has been restored. So Jesus is coming back soon. All the Christians believe that. So too, the Jews of the world are living on the edge now, biting their fingernails in excitement. Why? Oh, the Messiah must be around the corner. We are expecting him any moment. Why? The evidence is there that we were given this holy land by Allah Most High. He gave it to us. The deed for the Holy Land is in our name. And we were a people who betrayed our covenant with Allah. And so he punished us and expelled us. And we were in exile for many years. But now, by divine grace, the Holy Land has been liberated. And when I use the word liberated, can I be speaking as a Muslim who says the Holy Land is liberated? No, I'm speaking from their viewpoint. And I would have expected that my audience would have at least 5 ringgits worth of intelligence and not to object to my use of the word liberated. I'm speaking from their perspective. From our perspective as Muslims, the Holy Land was free when we ruled over it. There was justice and there was freedom in the Holy Land.